Welcome to Long Lost Friends. I'm Elizabeth Eve King.
And I'm Andrea Goyan. Elizabeth and I used to do improv comedy together back when we were 19, and then we lost touch.
A few years ago, we found each other and we're
Long lost friends.
Today, we are so excited to have Jerry and Kathy and Stormy Oltion joining us. Jerry and Kathy live in Eugene, Oregon with their cat Stormy. They both write science fiction. Jerry has written 50 novels, published over 150 stories, probably by now it's over 200, and 102 in Analog magazine alone. I can't believe that. His novella, Abandoned in Place, won the Nebula Award for the best novella of 1997. Another of Jerry's stories, The Astronaut from Wyoming, co-written with Adam Troy Castro, was nominated for both the Nebula and the Hugo Award. And in 2007, the story won the Seiun Award for the best translated work in Japan, or in Japanese, I'm sorry. Jerry's other novels include 2 books, Isaac Asimov's Robots and Alien series, Alliance in Humanity, and 4 Star Trek books, one of which was a collaboration with Kathy. Jerry's also regular for Stein Telescope magazine, writing a column called Astronomer's Workbench, featuring homemade astronomy equipment. And Kathy is also a medical laboratory scientist. And oh man, talk about astronomy. Have they gotten into astronomy? Click below to look at their telescopes, their astrophotos, and of course, a list of books, stories, and where to find them. Welcome, Jerry, Kathy, and Stormy.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, great to have you guys. Before we actually get started, we would love to see Stormy. It's one of our favorite moments.
Okay. Here we go. She is sound asleep on the desk right next to me. So let me pick her up here.
You can pick her up. Oh no, poor Stormy.
Here we go.
It's gonna be Stormy, maybe.
Stormy, baby. She may be Stormy.
This is how she sleeps, all curled up. This is our kitty Stormy.
Oh, is she a tortoiseshell?
She is.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Yeah, right.
This is what's going on. I know. Look at that pretty little face.
Yeah, there she is. Now this is probably the most you'll see of Stormy. She does not like being held, so I'm going to set her back down.
She has so much orange on her for a tortoiseshell.
Yeah.
She does.
Very.
Her mother was her mother was dark, right?
Yeah.
But her father must have been a yellow Tom.
Wow, beautiful cat. Stormy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now she's looking at you like, why'd you wake me up for?
Why'd you wake me up?
It's
good for me.
A nap about chasing mice or something. So one of the things we wanted, there's so much to talk about. I mean, so many cool things you do. But one of the things we thought would be really interesting, you've written 50 novels and 4 Star Trek novels. How do you get into writing in another world like Star Trek? And what is it like? Just tell us all about it, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, when you start out writing, you're writing your own stuff and trying to get it published. And usually you start with short stories. And I'd only written half a dozen short stories when somebody asked if I wanted to write a Robots and Aliens book in the Isaac Asimov's Robots and Aliens series. And, I used to read the robot novels and I thought they were kind of fun. And the idea of being able to play around in that universe when I'd only been writing for, 4 years or so, it was really a surprise that anyone would ask me to do that. So yeah, I took the job and they liked the one that I wrote and they let me finish the series. So I actually got to write 2 books in that series. And that provided the experience, and it got my name probably on a list of people who could write what we call media tie-in novels or shared universe novels. And it got my foot in the door. And it wasn't anything I did. I was asked to do it. So I don't imagine lightning's going to strike twice, but that was that was kind of what happened.
Now, do they give you a story at all, or do they say we want these characters? Or I mean, how much freedom and how much
Yeah, and a Bible.
With
Yeah,
the
Bible
robot
and-
books, there was an overarching storyline that we had to follow, but we could tell pretty much any tale we wanted as long as we picked up here and ended there. With the Star Trek books, that was different. Once we got into the Star Trek books, you come up with any idea you want, and you write an outline, and you send it off to your editor, and the editor either approves of it and sends it on to Paramount Pictures, where their continuity people go over it and make sure you're not creating any kind of a problem for the series. But basically, you come up with your own idea, and they either give you the green light or the red light. And once you've got the green light to go, you just write whatever it was that you chose to write in that universe.
Did you ever get the red light? Because you obviously got a lot of green.
Many red lights. I'll tell you a little story. After my first two Star Trek novels, John Ordover, the editor, in a private email to me, he said, "You know, you've written 2 Star Trek novels in which Kirk doesn't get lucky." I said, "That's really out of character for Kirk." So I wrote a proposal for a novel called Kirk Gets Lucky, and he was cursed with luck. And what that meant was, of course, you could not take the Enterprise into battle because being in a battle is unlucky, right? So the engines would break down just before they would go into battle or what have you. And it was really messing with his ability to be the captain of a starship. And John loved it. He thought the idea was great. And we sent that off to Paramount Pictures, and I could hear the no from Hollywood. Like, no, we're not going to publish a book called Kirk Gets Lucky. So alas.
Yeah.
So
But
did you,
the one that
did you have
Kathy
to
and I did,
stay? Oh, sorry, did you have to stay with the characters then? The, like,
ask that
the
again?
lead characters, did you have to keep the lead characters from the Star Trek series in the book?
Yeah, you know, they want you to write, well, it depends on what series you were doing. I always did original series. You know, so it was Kirk and Spock and Bones and those guys. And yeah, they want you to use those characters. And you know, and you can make up any minor characters you want. And if you're going to kill somebody off, you need to make up that character.
I need to wear a red shirt, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So the interesting thing,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the interesting thing about, that's how Jerry got into being able to write Star Trek. I came in it from, a different pathway. Back in the mid 90s, late 90s, they started a contest for new writers called Strange New Worlds, in which you can write any short story in any of the universes of the Star Trek family. And I managed to get a story in the first 2 contests, got them published. And once that happened, and Jerry was already writing Star Trek, and that's how I managed to get into the ability to write in these same books.
Yeah,
That's great.
That sounds like a great contest.
It is.
the 4th novel was the one that we wrote together. I've got it here. I'll hold it up to the screen. It was part of a series called New Earth, and the shtick on this, John Ordover liked to do kind of creative things with the series, and the deal with this series was all of the books were written by couples, by I think they were all married couples at that, right?
I think so.
I'm not sure, but anyway, you know, Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush did one, and I can't remember who all did the others. But we had an overarching storyline with this one, which was different than usual. You know, we did have to pick up the characters here and deliver them there, but we could do anything we wanted in between. Except it turned out, tell the story of Chekhov.
So we have 6 weeks to write this book, and we're probably into two weeks in, and we get an email or a phone call, I don't remember which, from John Ordover saying, you got to not use Chekhov because he's going to go away in the book before you, and he's not going to be coming back until 2 books later. And so it was like, well, okay, we'll just go through, do a search and replace and make up a new character. Then Jerry decides, hey, let's make the new navigator a female. And so now we have to go check for all of the names, change the name everywhere, and now look for pronouns.
Yeah.
And that was a heck of a deal.
That was a lot of editing just to change.
It was fun, but
Yeah.
you know, we didn't have a whole lot of time, and it was like, oh gosh, I hope we get them all.
Yeah,
How
6
long-
weeks for a book is.
6 weeks is
uh,
crazy. How long are they? How long are the books?
There,
Did you say
Well,
weeks or
let's
months?
see, page count.
6 weeks.
You said
Yeah.
weeks.
Weeks,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
6 weeks.
okay. That's what.
You know,
6
I
weeks
just
is-
realized there's no page numbers.
Oh,
Oh, okay,
no, they,
just the end papers. It's 280 pages.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Yeah,
yeah, it's a full novel.
it's
so-
like an 80,000 word novel.
So
And,
how do you write together?
Yeah.
that was fun.
That was fun.
We're
So-
still married too, you know.
You're still married, so it must have worked. I figure it's like, and both of you
Oftentimes-
seem to have all your appendages and everything. So,
Yeah.
all 10
know.
fingers.
Yeah. The thing about this was, Kathy works a day job, well, an evening job. She goes to work at 2, gets off at 11. We had, like I say, about 6 weeks to write this thing. So, we get up in the morning, we both write. We would divide it up. We had the outline already figured out, and so we divide it up into pieces. And I'd take these chapters, Kathy would take those chapters, and so she would get up and start working on the novel, and then she'd have to go to work. And a lot of times I would wind up stuck on my piece, and so I'd go steal her piece.
He would.
And I'd finish her piece. and then I'd give her mine. It's like, I got stuck here, could you do this? And she and,
Okay, fine.
and the miracle of it was our styles were so similar. We've been together since our early 20s, right? We finish each other's sentences when we're talking, so we were able to do that in the writing, and you couldn't tell. It was seamless. You could not tell where I picked up and she left off. And
That
to
was
this day, if I reread the book a little bit, I can't tell what parts are mine and what parts are Kathy's.
wow. And as you find your writing still like that similar a lot?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could probably still do that sort of, finish each other's written sentences as well as, verbal ones.
Yeah. We've
Now, did
collaborated
one
on.
of you, one thing I've always heard about people working in collaboration is that somebody has veto power and everything. Is that true with you, or did you guys not need that?
We didn't
Like-
need it. I think I had veto power on that, but I never exercised it.
Kathy's
And-
like, well, I think I had veto power.
Right. I think, well, I guess, honestly, when it comes
It
right down
was-
to it, Kathy had equal veto power. I mean,
Yeah.
if she objected to something, I certainly wouldn't have insisted to put it in.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah,
No, but I think it also helped that we were just both such Star Trek fans from, the tiny, babies practically. We're all the way up through that, we knew these characters so well. We knew what would work and what wouldn't work, what they would say, what they wouldn't say, that we didn't really have to worry too much about, someone saying the wrong thing from the wrong character
right.
or wrong actions.
So
And-
did
Now,
you-
these are all the old Star Trek people, right? Sorry, Andrea. You can go
Okay.
next.
So, yeah, this is original Trek, Kirk and
With
Spock.
all, right.
Yeah.
I-
And,
Did
that's
you
what we
find-
grew up with.
Did you find it freeing to write in a world that was already created, or was it restrictive?
I think it was
Creative.
free.
Oh, totally freeing.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, we didn't have to create the characters. So we had already established characters, and we knew that the readers knew what those characters were capable of and knew their style. And so we didn't have to do a lot of work establishing the characters. We just kind of jumped in and took off with it. And because we were such Trek fans when we were younger, we kind of, if we felt like we were writing about friends, it was like that.
Sounds fun. Sounds like fun.
It
But
was.
it was.
Now, these novels then, because they would have come after the original series was over, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
So they're just completely new episodes for people who
Right.
want more original Star Trek, basically, right?
Right, and there were hundreds, I think, of novels. They really milked that cow as much as they could. So, yeah, and I think that's what eventually kind of killed the franchise. I think they overdid it. They published too many novels, and they even the diehard trekkers could not keep up, and they couldn't afford to buy every novel.
Now, have
So
you
are they
done this
still
for
doing
other
that at all?
worlds as well? I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Have you
And
done
there,
this with other writers, other worlds? Have you written for other franchises?
I have written in the Dark Sun series. I wrote a novel for Dungeons and Dragons. They had a game called Dark Sun, and that was a weird thing in that I was a science fiction writer almost exclusively. I didn't write much in the way of fantasy, but I had already done the Robot City books, and so I was approached by oh gosh, who was the owner of that franchise, Dungeons and Dragons. I can't remember who it was now, but they approached me to write a short story based on this game called Dark Sun, role-playing game. And they wanted a short story that would go in the boxed set. When they would sell a box set of the game, they wanted a little background story. And it was a neat challenge to write a fantasy, heroic fantasy, swords and sorcery kind of thing. And so I did it, and they liked it so much, they commissioned me to write a novel based on those characters and actually just continue the story on. And I had a grand time with that. I'm kind of a pacifist, and I'm writing in a universe where it's all blood and thunder and violence. And so I wrote a character who was a pacifist, and he's forced into gladiator games and stuff like that. And I was playing with that whole concept of maybe Dungeons and Dragons is a little too violent for people. And I was subtle enough that either they didn't notice it or they didn't think it was dangerous enough, but they let it go through. So anyway, yeah, that was another one of those universes that I wrote in. I think that was it though, Dungeons and Dragons.
You did Buck Rogers.
Oh, I wrote a Buck Rogers story too. Another one of those things that came to me. I don't think I sought out any of these other than the Star Trek books after the first one. They asked me for the first one, and then I would submit it.
You ever get right? I hesitate to use the word writer's block, but I will, for want of a better term, stuck. Do you ever get like, I'm stuck here, I don't know what to do on the.
I've been, well, we've both been.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The thing about getting stuck, if you have a deadline,
Well,
I'll tell you what, that's a great motivator. On my very first novel, I actually sold the novel on the basis of chapters and an outline. And so I had to finish it by a deadline. And I was getting pretty close. I was probably a month away from the deadline, and I could not figure out the conclusion of the novel. I mean, I knew where it wanted to go, but I couldn't figure out how to get there. And I called up my editor. This was before email. This was back in the 80s. I called up my editor, and I kind of told him the situation. I said, I think I'm going to miss my deadline. And he basically said, oh, no, you're not. He said, we've got copy editors waiting. We got proofers waiting. We've got a printer's schedule. We have a slot waiting for you in the bookstores. And if we miss that, that's thousands of dollars down the tube. So he said, you're not going to miss your deadline. And that was the motivation I needed, because it wasn't just me then. It was like, I'm letting the whole series of people down. And that was enough to just kick my butt back in gear. And I got to work, and I finished it, and I delivered it on the deadline.
Wow. Now, have you guys have the same editor agent? And have you switched throughout your years? Or?
As far as agent goes, I have an agent, but Kathy does not. Kathy doesn't write novels, and you really don't need an agent for short fiction. Right. The Star Trek stuff, even though we wrote a novel together, I don't think that was even agented, was it? I think that went just straight. Yeah, it went straight through Paramount, and or was it Pocket Books? Yeah, Pocket Books, and then Paramount. So yeah, we just negotiated our own contract and did that ourselves.
Very cool. Now, I noticed you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons and doing fantasy, though I think Star Trek is pretty much science fantasy.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
Especially though I love the Kirk got luckies thing, because I mean, that's one of the things every Star Trek person is, oh gosh, what aliens are gonna make it with this week,
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, if the current editor of the Star Trek series is watching this, I will still write that.
I mean, I think that would be a great, but I would buy that one. I think that would be the one that all of the titles I can think of. Oh yeah, let's see what happens here.
I think it would be a bestseller, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So Andrea, do you have any other questions?
I'm trying to think. I mean, other than just sort of like, if you have any advice for people that you can think of when you're diving into someone else's world, like what to concentrate on? Do you need to read everything that's ever been written, watch everything? Or, I mean, I'm wondering if someone who isn't a huge Star Trek fan gets asked to do something.
Yeah.
That's unlikely, but I mean, how do you dive into someone else's world?
Well, okay, the Dark Sun stuff, I wasn't into that. And I really did have to learn everything there was to know about it. Turned out they had what they called a story Bible, and it was for the game developers, and describing all the characters and their capabilities and stuff. And so they sent me that, and I wrote an outline and sent it to the editor, and I asked, is this even in character? And it turned out I had done enough of my homework that he said, yeah, it was. And so I didn't have to do a lot of revision. But I think, with things like Star Trek, if you haven't really watched the series, if you haven't watched the characters in action and seen at least most of the episodes, I don't think you'd be able to do it. I think the fans would know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, if you can't tell what's, what motivates any of those characters, if you're not familiar with the way they speak and they interact with each other, it's going to show.
Yeah, I would think that's good. I mean, those actors were so specific and their relationships were so iconic. I mean, they're just who they are. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
that makes sense.
And then the fans base is so intense that I would think, I mean, did you get any like fan, irate fans of, I don't think, no, you didn't. 'Cause I can see-
never got that. I tell you what, the fan mail was all positive. And it wasn't voluminous. We didn't get just a ton of fan mail, but we got some. And I'll tell you what was really cool though, about a month and a half ago, I was contacted by somebody who lives right here in Eugene, and he said, I live in the same town as you, and I'm a total Star Trek nerd, and I didn't realize that you'd written Star Trek books. And he's apologizing for bothering me with this letter, and it's like, no, dude, I'm totally jazzed that anybody still cares, And then it turned out he's a musician in a local band that plays old covers of old disco tunes, and he invited me to one of his concerts. And we established that he did not actually have all of my books, so I took one of my books to the concert, and in the break in between sets, I gave him the book, and it was one of those kind of mutual hug fests. We were both in love with what the other guy was doing, and that was one of the best fan experiences I've ever had. That was great.
That is so wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
really
really fun.
On the other hand, that's not an invitation for fans to show up on my doorstep. That
yeah, let's make that very clear.
Yeah, that's right. There's sort of a
That's
private
break a lot
boundary
of
there.
gifts.
Again, I've had one obsessive fan, and he was a sweetheart, but he had OCD, and he would call up 7 or 8 times a day. Yeah, I got my phone number, and it's like, oh, this isn't working out. And then we tried to talk him down, and he finally actually admitted, I'm just so OCD I can't stop. So I had to just stop taking his calls. That was kind of sad, but that's the only bad fan experience I've had, and even that was more sad than bad.
Yeah, that sounds like it. So do you like when you write on your own, do you tend to write science fiction rather than fantasy? Because you both have science, so much science background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Almost everything that I've done is science fiction. It's, anything between, talking about what happens during a total solar eclipse. What happens late at night in a toxicology lab when your instrumentation refuses to analyze one specific sample. That sort of thing. So mine is very much heavily based on, science fiction.
They say write what you know, and that's what we know is science. So that's what we write about.
Now, Kathy, is your science, is that a toxicology lab? Is that?
That at one point we had toxicology department in my laboratory, and I worked in that department for about 5 years. Yeah, on like once or twice a week, I would go down and I would do toxicology testing.
And what do you usually do then? In the lab?
The rest of the time in the laboratory is medical testing, such as testing blood and urine samples for we do complete blood counts, we do chemistry analysis, things like monitoring people's liver enzymes or their glucose for diabetics. That sort of thing is usually what what I do almost exclusively now is that.
I should, I gotta pick your brain more. I'm writing a series where it takes place in the Department of Mysterious Diseases.
Oh, there you go.
Part of the CDC, but like the bastard child of the CDC.
Right.
So,
Yes.
but I just think it's interesting because you are interested in that and have so much science on that. But Jerry, and maybe you as well, have this huge astronomy thing, which we're mostly going to talk about in the second section. But I just, it's that small versus the big, or as opposed, yeah, can you talk about that somehow? Because you've got both
Sure.
the minuscule stuff and then you've got the,
Macro.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I actually bought one of the old microscopes from work that was being decommissioned. And I bought it and brought it home. So, busman's holiday sort of a thing. If I see something cool at work, sometimes I'll find something like, a patient comes in and there's malaria in the blood. And you can see it in a microscope. And I came home one day and I said, honey, guess what? I've got malaria. He's like, I hope not. But I had a slide that had, was stained and I could see the malaria parasites in the blood. And so, on cloudy nights when you can't go out and look at the stars far away, you can look at, little tiny things up close.
And that's kind of the thing for me. I'm kind of a gearhead. I enjoy building telescopes and playing with the optics. In fact, last night we went out observing and I wasn't really all that interested in what I was looking at. So I took the telescope that takes the longest amount of time to set up and is the fussiest telescope to align and all that. I spent the whole night just playing with the gear. And, for me, that was the joy of it. And, so that's why it's nice to have a microscope for cloudy days and telescopes for sunny days. And I spend a lot of time in the shop just building telescopes and tweaking the ones I have. So the hobby isn't necessarily just going out looking at the stars. It's the whole package, building the scopes and learning about them. And now, with my job writing for Sky and Telescope magazine, I get to write about other people's projects. Once a month, I pick a subject that usually about somebody else's telescope project, and I write about that. So I'm learning all the time about all the various aspects of the field. And the nice thing about it is it's a hobby, so I can get as deeply into it as I want. But I don't have to worry about performing for somebody other than just once a month writing a column, and that's easy.
That's really, really cool. I was thinking, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I think there should be a term for it. And we were trying to come up with one, a friend of mine. It's like for convergent evolution, where two creatures evolve on, say, different continents, but they have the same physical characteristics because it's going to help them survive, but they're not related. I think there
Right.
should be something like that, like convergent evolution for like the microscope and the galaxy. Because sometimes you look at slides and it's like, I can't tell if this is a huge galaxy or a blow up of some microscopic, you know, the forms are so visually similar.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, galaxy clusters look like blood smears, with the little white cells and the red cells all through. Yeah.
There was someone recently who put a piece of chorizo up as,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
As
Such a hoot.
right, as a planet or something, right?
It was it's supposed to be a James Webb photograph.
Of a star. He said, this is a
But it
photograph
was
of the
chorizo.
surface of a star. And yeah, the stars up close kind of do look like a slice of chorizo. I thought it was brilliant. I felt bad for the guy that he had to apologize. It's like, why apologize? The people that got taken in were they were suckered by a joke. That's their problem, not his.
That sounds hilarious to me. I didn't hear that, but I like that.
Oh, yeah, check it
Very
out.
much.
Pretty funny.
The chorizo galaxy, huh?
Yep.
It was funny. There was quite a controversy over, the scientist lied. And it was like, well, no, a scientist made a joke and you didn't get it. That's the problem.
Scientists aren't supposed to be funny, Jerry. Not at all.
Darn it.
No
Well,
humor.
all right. Well,
Oh, now you tell us.
A little late.
Keeping. So I think, yeah, I think I'm going to save some of my other questions for Kathy
should.
on the second section, because but listeners, you have a surprise in store for you, because some of her science knitting, which is a field I think she might be a pioneer of, is quite amazing. And so I want to thank you for visiting with us and telling us all about the Star Trek, as well as writing in different worlds. And it's really fascinating stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maria Korloff, for directing us, and Alex Korloff for editing us. And we also want to keep the best things we learned this week, is usually what we end with. I usually start. I've actually found quite a few this week, but one of them I really like. There's a new detection system. Now, it's not foolproof or even that effective, so don't go around like running into sperm whales. But this is the new detection system that could save sperm whales from more strikes. And it monitors their beeps and pinpoints where they are. Excuse my bird flying
You're being
around.
upstaged by your pigeon.
Yeah, we're being, it's
Or
a
we had an
dove.
alarm go off just now.
Oh, ring-necked dove, I forgot, yes.
But but so they do a series of beeps that sort of locate where the whale is, and then they contact ships and say, hey, there looks like there might be a whale that's going to be breaching, be aware. And it's as I say, it's not hugely effective, but it can prevent in certain waterways them running into some of these whales, some of whom are endangered. So that was the best thing I
That's
learned.
great.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
That's very cool. Okay, mine is really silly because, as I said when we started, my week, I just didn't write anything down and it was chaotic and I never got around to it. So today I decided I was going to make egg salad sandwich for dinner. That's a long story, but I remembered that it's really cool that with eggs, the best way to make a hard-boiled egg is to bring cold water and eggs to a simmer, stop it, cover it, and wait 17 minutes, and then put them into cold water. So not to boil them to death. I only learned that last year, but it's kind of cool and it works really well.
And it's
Easy
17
simple.
minutes today, because I forgot how many, and I did do it once correctly, and usually I do it incorrectly.
To be fair, I have to look it up every time. Today's that I found said 17 minutes. So I'm going with 17 today.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Fine.
That should work.
That is,
Hey, what's yours, kiddo?
Okay, well, I read just recently that the Oregon State University, just up the road in Corvallis, somebody there had developed a new pigment for blue And, blue is it's one of those rare things. You either, find, like you use lapis lazuli or I'm trying to remember the other one. Or plant, things like woad or indigo. But they came together. They developed this blue pigment using yttrium, indium, and manganese. And it's Yinmin blue, or they're calling it now Oregon blue. And it is just the most gorgeous blue color you've ever seen.
Really good.
Is it a dark, deep blue?
Yeah.
Yes.
I have to look it up.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very pretty.
Yeah. Just Google Oregon blue and you'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a brilliant blue, and created right here in Oregon, about 100 miles up the road from us. So
Yeah.
we're kind of proud of that.
Wow.
Very
Wow,
cool.
that's very cool.
And let's see. Okay, the thing that I learned today, or well, not yet today, a couple days ago, that I didn't know, and it's kind of fascinating, is that cats have either no collarbones at all, or they're very small and free floating, and that's why a cat can hunker down so much and get through a very tight space that an animal with a collarbone would not be able to do that. And I've had cats all my life, and it never occurred to me that I never felt a collarbone there. So that was the cool little fun fact that I learned this week.
That is a cool
Know
fact.
that.
I've
And I'm
never
thinking about
thought never thought of it really.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about other animals like, rats and mice who can get, if they put their head through, they can get through, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And I think
So-
that's the same situation there. I think this must be the same deal. They don't have collarbones.
Yeah,
I
I
have to look
wonder.
that up. Yeah,
I'm
you're
trying
like,
to think if I would
Isn't that
rather
weird,
have
you think?
Yeah.
collarbone
I mean, that's one of the most
Yeah.
prominent, one of the most prominent bones in our bodies, the collarbone. And the
Yes.
cats, if they have one, it's a vestigial little remnant.
wow,
a
cool.
floating collarbone. That's kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
that's,
It'd be
Yeah.
cool if you had a floater that you could sort of figure out
Move
how to
around.
make it, make it
you have
like
shoulder
stronger
pads
than,
one day.
detach it, and have it float somewhere else. You could get
Yeah.
through small spaces and then be, yeah.
Right.
I think that's a fantasy, right? Again.
And then again, that's
Well,
how
thank you.
evolution works. If
Yeah.
natural selection finds a reason for it, it'll happen.
Right. Well, thank you both again so much for joining us. And we just
Thank
want
you
to
for having us.
it was really fun. And we just want to let people know that Long Lost Friends is brought to you by MetaStellar magazine, and that we are an online magazine publishing original science fiction, horror, and fantasy. And there's a link below if you want to learn more about us. And if you want to help support the magazine and support original fiction, you can go to our Patreon page, and everyone who works or helps out at MetaStellar is a volunteer. So all the money we get goes to paying for original fiction. So thank you again so much, and we will see people next time. All right.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much for
thank
having
you.
us.
Bye.
Bye.
The Zoom
Bye-bye.
wave.